All right. So, one thing I want to talk to you guys about today is a topic that is often confused with other things as far as what an actual diet break is. So, typically, a diet break can be confused with things like refeed, maintenance breaks, things of that nature. And I want to specify today what an actual diet break is, and when to use it, when to utilize it, and when to use these over other, methods such as a refeed, a return to maintenance for an extended period of time, things of that nature. So that's what we'll be talking about in today's call. So, by definition, what is a diet break? Sorry. A diet break is a planned return to maintenance. So this is a period to where the calories are going to be brought back up to maintenance, and this is going to be on purpose. And this is typically in the middle of a longer fat loss phase. Now, a lot of people get this confused because it has the word diet, or it's just the word diet break. They think that, okay, this is a break from the diet. I'm going to be able to eat pizza and Oreos this week, and I'm essentially taking a break from the diet, and then I'm back on it next week. That's not what this is at all. This is still a very structured plan, but it is a break from the dieting aspect. So if you think about a diet break, we're just taking a break from dieting for a very short amount of time. So typically, a diet break is going to be anywhere from like 1 to 2-ish weeks. I mean, this is a planned return to maintenance, and then we're going to get right back to the deficit once that's over. Now, a refeed is different. It's typically 1 to 2 days, sometimes even 3 days. It really just kind of depends on the person and how their weight trend is going after each day of each refeed day kind of compiles onto itself, right? So you kind of have to watch the weight if you're doing a refeed. And typically, a refeed is more aggressive than a break is. It could even be, like if you think of like a returning to maintenance, like that's your 100%, right? A refeed could be something like a 105, 110, even up to like 120% of what your actual maintenance number is. If we're in a far enough down deficit to where having that over and beyond number, such as what the refeed is, would do you any good, if that makes sense. And then, if we're looking at like, if you've been in like a dieting phase for a long time and you haven't had a diet break, but you've kind of met the goal that you have set out to do, and then at that point you would be ending the diet. The fat loss phase is over. So a diet break typically sits in between the refeed and just needing to end the diet. And the hardest thing is knowing when to actually pull the trigger and do the diet break, or just ending the diet altogether. So there's some things that you need to look at, such as like warning signs, as far as like what you should be looking for, signs that your body is giving you that you need to have a diet break. So a lot of times, like if I'm setting up a client's, fat loss phase, right? Like I might just put diet phase smack dab in the center of a 16-week dieting phase on week 8. That does not mean that's happening on week 8. That's just, this could happen on week 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, wherever. Like it's going to fall somewhere in there. But we're looking for warning signs first and foremost to know that the body actually needs it in the first place. So essentially, we're looking for signs and symptoms, and then putting the diet place in play is a response to what we're actually seeing from those signs and symptoms. So, a couple of things that you can look for. Now, keep in mind, all this is in a deficit phase. You're in a cut. You're eating less than what your body is burning throughout the day. So always keep that in mind. So strength or output in the gym has been declining for 1 to 2 weeks straight. And you are like actually giving effort in the gym. Like you're not just going through the motions, like you're actually going into the gym, anticipating, progressively overloading and getting stronger, but it's just not moving, right? Like something's just off, right? You're a little weaker. Things just aren't going the way that you had planned. Sleep quality has dropped down, and or you wake up just already feeling exhausted, tired, right? Um, Hunger and food, thoughts are encompassing your entire day. Hunger is an 8, 9, even a 10 out of 10. Like you're starving, and all you're thinking about is the next meal right now. Granted, if you're in like a contest prep phase, like I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, the last 6 weeks, my every thought is when is my next meal, or like how many hours until, how many minutes until my next meal because I'm just that hungry. But that's, kind of, that's a little different, than what we're talking about here. But if you're just in like a dieting phase, you don't have any kind of like set end goal to get to, and you're having these hunger cues and these food thoughts that are just encompassing your entire day. Again, that is another a warning sign there as well too. If you have issues with like motivation, to go to the gym, a motivation to stick to your diet plan, your mood has gotten, kind of crappy, your libido is down, like a lot of these things again are pointing toward that you need a diet break. And then kind of the first initial sign that I like to look for is has the weight stalled? Are we in a true deficit and our adherence is there? And if we are, and we're seeing the weight stall 2, 3 weeks at a time, then we know, okay, it might not be a good idea to pull calories even harder because one, that hunger in the food thought is going to get worse. Number two, your sleep quality is going to get even more worse. Number three, your strength and your output, and again, is going to get worse. And then mood, libido, and motivation. All these are going to get worse if you continue to just remove food, right? So that's why it's important to be able to recognize when you actually need the refeed or when you just need to keep pushing. But those are some telltale signs that you would benefit from actually taking, sorry, I said refeed, a diet break at this point in time. So, if we're looking at this, sliding scale here, if we're looking at like these signs just like as a whole here, like anything over like two or three signs of these like being in combination with each other, then more or less it's time to go ahead and have that diet break. Now, if you're in a dieting phase and you're just seeing that your hunger and your food thoughts are getting kind of out of control and everything else is good, well, you're just in that stage of the dieting phase to where hunger is going to kick in. It's going to happen whether you want to or not. Again, one indicator that's going wrong is not good enough proof, I would say, to pull the trigger and do the dieting phase. So you need to have several, excuse me, of these things kind of stack up to where, okay, this makes sense to do the dieting phase. And then again, right, like another thing that I'll add to as well too is if you're in a dieting phase and you have something come up like a life event, you're going on vacation and you're, halfway through that, you know, dieting phase initially, like that could be a good week to take that diet break. Now, do you need it? Maybe, maybe not. Again, that kind of all just, kind of depends on these, kind of checkpoints here. But if you're going on a family vacation, you want food to be a little bit higher. You want to be able to enjoy your time. That might be a good place to do that diet break just out of ease of convenience and, understanding that the plan that you're doing is a lifestyle based plan. It's not a contest prep phase. I mean, if you're in a contest prep and you have a family vacation, okay, cool. You still are expected to do everything that you would typically do at home, just at the beach, right? A few years ago, I had a lady who actually had a cruise plan 3 weeks before her contest day was. And she took every single meal that she would typically have over the week. She took it and packed it in her suitcase. And she stayed on plan and come back even leaner and even better than she left. So again, it kind of just depends on like what phase, what your end goal is, but always have to keep in mind you need to be able to recognize the signs that you need one, and more or less it's not just a mental thing, right? You need a good number of these signs to kind of add up to justify pulling that trigger. Um, so now we look at what actually happens during the diet break. So we're looking to essentially reset a couple of things, right? So if we're a diet for an extended amount of time, you're going to see shifts in your hormones, your behavior, like mood, libido, things of that nature, and all of that is working against you in the dieting phase. So if you take this break, push yourself back up to maintenance for a week, 2 weeks, it's essentially going to give your body a chance to catch up. Is really what you're doing. So leptin is going to partially recover. It's not going to recover fully. Like you're still going to have, hunger signaling to a degree. but you're going to have that hunger signaling go down. So leptin is going to be increased. Your glycogen stores within your muscles are going to be replenished. That's going to help with your training performance. Your adherence to the meal plan, to just doing this in general, should go up because, hey, you're getting a lot more food this week. It's kind of like, all right, I've dieted for 8 to 10 weeks straight. This week is going to be a lot more food. I'm going to be able to chill a little bit, right? So like that's going to give you more of like a mental boost to just adhere to the plan, here going out. And then again, you will see a little bit of bump in that metabolic rate. Is it going to make it go from 20 to 100? No. It's just going to slow some of that some of that metabolic adaptation down some. So like if it's bump down to here, it might bump you up to here, right? Like it's not a huge shift, but it will kind of restore it to a degree. Now, keep in mind though, um, none of this goes toward the deficit, the dieting phase, right? So like if you're in a 16-week cut, and we're planning on 1 week, 2 weeks being a diet break, we know that we're going to have 15 to 16 weeks in a deficit, right? And the other 1 to 2 weeks in the dieting phase is going to take you out of that deficit. So none of this is going to contribute to the fat loss progression, but it's a stepping stone to help you keep progressing instead of you just trying to white knuckle it and just grind it out for the full 16 weeks with no break at all. So how you can do this is just keep it simple and just keep it structured, obviously. So you should know like what your maintenance was before that you like actually started the deficit, right? Like you should start at maintenance, and when you start your, diet, your cut, whatever you want to call it, you're going to go from maintenance and go down into the deficit, right? You need to be in a calorie deficit to lose body fat. So look back to what your, maintenance diet was beforehand and just revert to that. There's no need to like slowly, taper it up. Just go from there to there. If you're at 2200 and your maintenance is 31, just jump straight to there. Um, keep training as normal, keep tracking everything as normal as you would too. And it can be, a 1 to 2 week thing as far as the diet break goes. Really, after the first 7 days, if you feel better, if all of those like check marks are good as far as like your leptin, your hunger signaling, your adherence, your libido, like your just overall motivation to do these things are better, you're probably good to just go ahead and jump back into the deficit. But if you're not 100% there, run it another week, essentially. Um, so for the majority of folks, though, you're going to need one every 8 to 12-ish weeks if you're doing more of a longer term dieting phase, just to keep those adaptations that will negatively affect you in the cut, just to keep them from essentially bottoming out. If you can, they're going to come down regardless, but if you can kind of give them a little bit of a bump up, it's going to keep you able to keep pushing in this cut for a longer duration of time, essentially. And so now, one big thing that a lot of people like to make the mistake of, though, in this diet break, is they treat it as a break. That's really, they take the word diet break quite literally. So they treat this as a free for all, as a, oh, I'm going to start swapping my macros up. I'm going to quit eating my eggs and English muffin in the morning. I'm going to start making pancakes and bacon and waffles, and like I'm gonna like really do this right. But in reality, like you have to keep in mind, like even though if the macros do match up, you're impeding digestion, you could cause some issues there as well too, blood sugar spikes and crashes and things like that. So really and truly, you should be eating the same foods that you were eating, just at a higher pace at the maintenance calorie level, right? Um, you know, I think that's the biggest thing with most people is they get into the mindset of they're in a diet break, and the biggest mistake that they make is they start interchanging food out for highly palatable food, which highly palatable food is just food that tastes very, very good. And now you have the taste to always have more highly palatable food in your diet. And then once you go back to the deficit in a week or two, that highly palatable food is now gone. So again, that's going to drive that hunger way up. And the stuff that you worked for 1 to 2 weeks to kind of reset has kind of now been reversed. It really didn't do you any good from like a adherence, libido, at more or less like your hunger levels and all that stuff has kind of it didn't improve any at all. Like you probably just stayed idle for a week or two, if anything else. So the biggest thing with this though is just make sure that it's structured. It's not a free for all. Um, you can really dig yourself into a hole if you're not careful. And one thing to add as well too, I meant to talk about this in slide 5. Um, you will see a small jump on the scale as well too. But if you think about this, you're eating more food, which with more food comes more glycogen storage, which comes more glycogen storage, comes more water retention, right? And then on the third side of things, you're eating more food, there's more GI volume in your stomach. So you should expect to see a 1 to 5 pound increase, right? Now, granted, a lot of that's water weight, a lot of that's glycogen retention, a lot of that is just more stomach volume. But once you get back into the deficit and into the dieting phase, that will quickly fall off. So don't be that person who 3, 4, 5 days into the diet break, like, holy crap, the scale's already up 4 pounds. What am I doing? Let me go, right back to the deficit. You're doing it wrong. You have to hold the line steady and just let it do what it's going to do and just trust the process. So at the end of the day, a diet break is a tool and it should be seen as such. It's not a 1 to 2 break to have just a free for all and just do is essentially just whatever that you want to do inside of the diet phase. So the main thing is use it when your body needs it, not when you mentally want it, but when your body can actually use it, and then just get right back to work. There's no need in dragging this out for several weeks. 1 to 2 weeks is kind of the maximum. Get it done, get everything kind of reset, and then you're right back at it, going again. So with with that, anybody have any questions? Anybody have any thoughts? Anybody done, which I know a couple of you have dieting, diet break, any experiences, anything at all to add to that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask with diet breaks, is it primarily done through just the manipulation of food, or if there's cardio protocols, do you pull cardio back at all? Is output changed? Like if they were at maintenance before the diet and 3,000 calories, if they're going back up to 3,000 calories for the break, but their cardio is kind of, do you pull it?
I think you were breaking up a little bit, but I think I know what you said. It depends. Now, if it's a crap ton of cardio, if it's like 5 days a week, 300, 400 calories at a time that you're trying to burn, like you're really trying to get some fat off, yes, look, like you need to pull that back some. But you could also look back at your last like maintenance phase and say, okay, in this maintenance phase, I was doing 2 days of cardio, 200 calories burned. I was eating, 3,000 calories and 10,000 steps, right? Try your best to get it back to that baseline, because if you look, at your metrics, if your weight stayed at 200, for that 6 weeks phase in maintenance, it stayed steady, and you ate that 3,000 calories, and you did those 2 days of cardio, and you did those 10,000 steps. We know that that's your true maintenance at that point in time, right? So if you're doing a crap ton of cardio and your steps are very high, it would probably be beneficial to, taper those back to a degree. Now, how much is obviously going to be, person to person dependent. Um, but if it's not a lot to begin with, I would keep it. So, for example, I put a guy in a diet break yesterday. He's doing 12,000 steps daily. He's only doing three cardio sessions a week, 150 calories burned each time with a 15-minute time cap. And I bumped his food up from 2,300 up to 3,100. The only thing I did was up the food. To me, those 3 times like 15-minute sessions, that's more or less cardiovascular health, right? Like that's not overexertion. Like that's a very short duration for cardio, right? So like in those cases, I keep it. But if you're burning the candle at both ends, getting 15,000 steps a day, 5 sessions of cardio a week, 400 calories burned each session, I think at that point, you're still having too much fatigue on the daily, on the weekly, that's being cumulative, and it's not allowing that diet break to actually do what it's supposed to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, so it's really person to person dependent, but the main thing is that's why I'm a big advocate of like keeping your numbers, like keeping that spreadsheet that I have, so I can, so I can go back and look and say, okay, at Rihanna's, last maintenance phase, she was doing X, Y, and Z, and now, we're here. Can we make it feasible to get back to that point without causing a big disruption? Um, and if we can, that's what we'll do. But yeah, if you can limit fatigue, especially if like in very high bouts of cardio, for sure, do pull those out or at least decrease them some. So, anybody else have anything to add to that at all?
Only thing I want to ask is like, and maybe you kind of specified and maybe it's the same, but whenever it comes to like a refeed versus a diet break, like what's just kind of like I guess, the difference between those if there is, which sounds like there is,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
in terms of,
I I think it depends on the person and maybe like what their goal is as well too, right? Like if
gotcha.
we're in like a contest prep phase, like and we're trying to like get you down to a certain weight at a certain deadline, right? Like we might not have 1 to 2 weeks to just let you go on cruise control. Like we might need those 2 weeks of fat loss to get you where that you need to be. So like one again, it just kind of depends. And then it also kind of depends on like how your body is responsive as well too, right? Like if you're somebody who's very depleted, it might take 1 to 2 days of a refeed, maybe even 3 days to get you back full. But if we're working against the clock, we could do that in a 3 day time span rather than taking 1 to 2 weeks of a diet break to get the same result, if that makes sense. And then if you're looking at like what you do as far as like a refeed goes, like a diet break, like if you've ever done a refeed with me, like you specifically know during, those refeed days, there's no training, there's no cardio. It's just a step count only. Like we're trying our hardest. If I could tell you to just stay at home all day, skip work, do nothing but eat and get your steps in, that would be perfect because I essentially want you to be recovering as much as you can on those refeed days. But when it comes to a diet break, we're not trying to push the recovery that hard and get it that quick of a turnover. So I think it really just kind of depends on what phase that you're in as far as like a person, like, your end goal, and kind of if your adherence level is good enough as well too. Because sometimes a refeed day, again, people like to use the macros, and if I give you 500 grams of rice, whereas normally you're at 200, you might take your normal 200 grams of rice, and then those extra 300 grams of rice, you're going to be like, oh, I wonder how many rice cakes can I fit into this, or just that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, Definitely matters as well too. So,
that makes sense.
well, anybody else have anything at all? If not, well, we'll go ahead and end it. And I appreciate you guys showing up as always. If you guys have questions, please let me know. And we'll go from there.